When looking at your marriage, it may be hard to pinpoint one exact defining moment when things started to fall apart and your wife started to consider separation. When many men look back at the past, they say to themselves, it was complacency, it was a slow burn, and death through 1,000 cuts of bickering and emotional disconnection. Now, this may seem true, but I can tell you after working with hundreds of men, there usually is one defining singular moment that they made as a mistake that caused their wife to finally say to herself, you know what? This is not worth saving. If you fail to recognize this turning point with your wife, one, you don't know how to fix it, and two, if you and your wife fall apart, it will repeat in the next relationship and the next relationship. And this is why the divorce rate increases each time there's a new marriage with someone. This means one thing, you're destined for a life of despair and loneliness, repeating the same cycle with you and your children. I call this mistake the blissful illusion. And in this video, what I'm gonna do for you is I'm gonna show you this illusion that most men make that cause their wives to pull away, and 3 steps how to fix it with one of my clients. This idea of the blissful illusion came along when I was writing my book, Soulmates Suck, back when I was in Europe with my ex-girlfriend while I was in grad school. You know, at this time in Europe with her, it was supposed to be this amazing romantic trip. At one point, I thought that she was the woman I wanted to marry. However, things didn't really go that way. You see, when we were in Europe, things were already falling apart, and I just found out that she cheated on me with her ex-boyfriend. But I wanted to make the most out of the trip. And when looking back at my previous 2 relationships before her, I was cheated on each and every time. And I was thinking to myself, the whole point of this book, even though I stand behind it still with this blissful illusion, I didn't understand why my idea of what a relationship was supposed to be like wasn't matching my experience. And I realized it's because of this idea about what makes a happy relationship. You see, our blueprint for what makes a happy marriage, a happy relationship, doesn't often match reality. This illusion of the happily perfect wedding and marriage and just finding that soulmate, it doesn't exist. Now, I'm not poo-pooing on love. I think it exists. I have a whole channel on making marriages better. But I recognized there had to be a different strategy, because this idea of falling in love and staying happily ever after, which is buttressed by Disney movies and rom-coms and social media power couples, isn't true. And look, I believe that when you have the right idea and the right blueprint for how to have a successful relationship, you know how to act accordingly. Because if you act according to this illusion and it doesn't match the reality, that's when there's conflict and that's when things fall apart. And that's what I noticed with so many men who come into my marriage mastery program, much like Taylor. You see, it's crazy how much Taylor's story matched my own and how it probably matches yours. When he first found his wife, there was a whirlwind romance. He swore like everything was perfect about her. He couldn't find something wrong about her, even if he tried. This translated over to them moving in 6 months. They were having sex every single day, twice on Sunday, and then eventually things slowly started to change. Now, unfortunately, because we have this idea that things are supposed to be perfect all the way till death do us part, it doesn't stay that way. You see, what happens is that when we're in the honeymoon stage or limerence, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, all these love chemicals are floating through your synapses that make you more high than heroin and cocaine. And in that moment, it's good because that creates bonding with you two. But those drugs fade over time naturally, and you have to develop something deeper. And if your blueprint for love is Disney, is passion all the time, when that starts to fall away, you do what Taylor did. You start to think to yourself, what am I doing wrong? How come she's not over me as much? How come she's not all over me like she used to? How come she's not texting me, chasing me as much as she used to? Is something wrong with me? You see, that's when Taylor started to do what many men do in this situation. He started to become needy. He started to become obsessive. He would text her and chase her more because he thought, well, if I just try harder, then she'll like me again. We'll go back to the way things were. This is when Taylor started buying her gifts. He started following around the house. He became in his feminine state. He became reactive to his wife, which is one of the most unattractive qualities a woman can have. You see, what attracted her to you in the first place, one of the most important qualities, was you were on your mission. You were this masculine guy that was just driving towards life. But when things start to fall apart, you take it personally, as you do because you take high responsibility in your life. But this is a double-edged sword, because when it comes to your relationship, you think something's wrong with you. So here's how you fix this. There's 3 things I did with Taylor that I do with all my men in the Marriage Mastery program that started to turn things around with his wife, get her to start chasing him again, and get back what he used to have. So how did Taylor turn this around? Well, the first step is what I call masculine power. Now, if you know this or not, your nonverbal behaviors are 80%, if not more, of the communication with your wife. And the thing is that so many men are focused on the right words, the tangible things to say, almost like there's some formula of specific words you could say to change your mind. And I'm telling you, that is 20% true. 80% of it is the way you communicate to your wife. This comes down to the tone and the types of conversations you have, your eye contact, your body posture. It's so underrated, but this is vastly important. As an example with Taylor, I'll give you one example. Oftentimes when he would come toward his wife in conversation, he would often ask her questions. What are you doing? How are you? All these things, putting it in logical conversation. And one thing we shifted in conversation that really changed the thing for him, that broke that blissful illusion with his masculine power, is making statements over questions. It seems insignificant, but compounded over time, this makes a huge difference. So when he came home to his wife, instead of asking her how her day was, how things are going for her, he would start to share his life, his stories. This is something that we do automatically and subconsciously when we're in a confident, masculine state when you first met your wife. You are actually conveying value instead of trying to pull value in from your wife. You're not needy anymore. You see, when you're speaking in statements over questions, you're producing yourself, you're putting yourself out there. And this shows a couple things. Like I said before, you're no longer needy to your wife. In actuality, this teaches her that you are good despite how she feels. And she wants to be with a man that feels confident and self-assured in who he is. But if you're constantly doting around your wife, following around the house, always asking her questions, always trying to chase, what you inevitably do is push her away. The second thing I had Taylor do was cultivating the shift. Now, oftentimes with this masculine power, your wife wants you to be in your direction, on your purpose as a man. But so often, over the years and years of marriage, you become codependent with your wife. This means you can't feel good unless she is happy. This is where the whole adage of happy wife, happy life comes along. You see, it's your human brain's tendency to want to relax and not spend as much energy as possible. But so many men get the illusion that once they marry their wife, they can relax. They can stop being on their edge as a man. They don't have to go to the gym as much because she loves him. They don't have to spend time doing hobbies and developing other aspects of their life and cultivating who they are, not developing themselves. But the thing is that the truth is that you are growing and she is growing. And if you're not growing with her consciously, you are slowly growing apart. I hear so many wives when I get on the phone call with them is they say, Josh, I want him to have an aspect of his life that I don't know about. Look, women love a mystery. This is that part of them where they love the attraction piece of like, you have this separate part of your life that you're passionate and ambitious about, but she's not part of. Because if she feels like she's your whole entire life, your whole being, then she feels pressured and dependent. Like you have to rely on her. And that pressure just makes her uneasy and just wants to make her escape more, hence going away from you. So what I told Taylor to do, as I asked him, I said, Taylor, what are the things you did in the beginning of the relationship that you no longer do? And for him, he stopped going to the gym. He had buddies he would hang out with. He would go hunting. He would play sports. But all that took a back seat whenever he became a father and he invested all of his time and his energy into the work. And I know you want to be a good father and you want to provide and do all these things. And yes, you can, but what comes first is making sure that you are whole and you are happy. You see, if all of your psychological and emotional dependence is on her, things are always gonna fall apart. The final shift I made with Taylor is what I call changing the core story. You see, everyone has an inner narrative. You have these core beliefs about love, about what it means to be a good husband, a good father. And oftentimes you got those beliefs early on in childhood that are unconscious from your parents. And even if it worked for your parents at that time, times have shifted and changed. And what women are looking for now is completely different. Back in the day, being a provider and giving money and doing all those things, that was extremely valuable. But now oftentimes, if your wife or girlfriends are making their own money, there are other variables and parts of you as a man that you must provide her other than financially. So this comes along in the form of beliefs. One belief that Taylor had is that, all the successful husband has to do is bring home the money and just be there around the house. So that's what he did. But for his wife, she didn't really need the money as much. She had her own career. And when he was home with the kids, he was just kind of there, but he was distracted. And you see, the most valuable gift you can give your wife is your undivided attention. And whenever he was scattered attention with his wife, they weren't doing fun things. He wasn't appreciating her. They weren't going on trips. He took for granted all the things that she was saying to him. I'm bored, or I want to go do something exciting. And he kind of always put it on the back burner. Yeah, I will in the future. I will in the future. But slowly over time, this was like a corrosive acid in the wife's heart and her mind. And eventually the pain was too much. She looked at her life and says, you know what? I'm 45. I have half my life left to live and I'm not happy. And of course, she's going to look at the person she's with the most and say, it's because of you. So what I did with Taylor is we altered his blueprint on what it means to be a high value man and a high value husband. Once we changed his belief patterns, he started interacting with his wife differently. Those new actions and new beliefs cultivated a man that made his wife feel like this is a new guy. This is the guy I fell in love with, but even better than before. His value increased, and subconsciously, she started to change the way she felt toward him. Now, when it comes to your core story, I can't identify your beliefs through a camera. This is why we have a free marriage evaluation with my marriage evaluators. What you can do right now, set up a call down below by clicking on the link. It's a free call where you're gonna speak with me or my marriage evaluator, and we're gonna assess your marriage, assess those beliefs, and see what happened in your marriage, get to where it's at right now. You see, once you have a clear roadmap of how you got to where you are now and how to move forward, all you have to do yourself is take those right action steps to get her back. Click the link down below, set up a call. We only have limited spots each week. So if you're serious about saving your marriage, I've clicked the link down below right now. Thank you for watching the video. Watch these other videos right here, and I'll see you in the next one.